What is up, everyone? It is me, Anthony, and I know it's been a while, but I'm back and just in time for the spooky season. And I'm here to talk to you guys about the newest Hulu original movie, Appendage. A young fashion designer's life spirals out of control as her darkest inner thoughts manifest into something gruesome that won't stop growing. This film is directed and written by Anna Zolovic. You know me, guys, in names. This is probably really bad, but this is the feature debut for Zolovic, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. She's on my radar. I can't wait to talk about this film. Now, Appendage is based off of a short film that Zolovic did on Hulu in a show called Bite-Size Halloween. I know I've been recommended to watch that show. I saw some clips of it. I was like, this looks interesting, but you know, life, there's a lot of stuff to do. But the people at Hulu saw this short film and they said, hey, why don't you just make a feature film and put it on Hulu for Huluween? And Huluween is the Hulu's yearly thing that they do for like Halloween. And I actually kind of like Huluween. I've seen a lot of movies on there during that time, and I was like, you know, this is pretty cool. I hope they keep on doing it, even though that I think Hulu's going to die pretty soon. Thanks, Disney. But like I said, this is the feature debut for Zolovic, and you know, all of you guys online are always screaming and wanting original movies, you know? So we got an original horror film here by a first-time director. We gotta support it, guys. But a disclaimer before we get into this movie, if you watch the trailer of this film and you watch it and you're like, hey, this looks interesting, I want to go check it out. Let me stop you for a little bit, because let me warn you, because I watched the trailer as well and I was very interested in it and everything, but when I watched the film, totally wasn't what I was expecting from what I got from the trailer. And that's nothing new. That's happened with a whole bunch of movies, and this isn't any different. But if you're not a person that is into horror comedies, because that's what this is, don't watch this film, because the trailer does not show any horror comedic stuff at all. So I know there's some people out there that are like, horror and comedy doesn't mix. If you're one of those, just be warned. So like I said, this movie is a horror comedy, and we don't get a lot of those because everybody is waiting, just ready to type online to say that this movie wasn't funny or this comedy wasn't funny. And I have to say, you know, everything's different. Everybody has an opinion. You know, if you think something's funny, other people might not think it's funny. Sorry, that's just the way it is. But I also am not blind to the fact that horror and comedy is a tricky subject to combine, because I also do think that there is recently have been a surge of fans that want elevated horror, a la your A24s with your Hereditaries and Midsommers. And then there's people like me that grew up watching creature feature films like Bats from 1999, which I'm gonna talk about on this channel because I love that film. But that is more of like cheesy stuff and, you know, crazy, not horror stuff. But I like it. I love that stuff. And I grew up with the creature features, one of my favorite genre, if not my favorite genre in the horror genre. It's freaking horror, man. Have genres within genres. But I think that Appendage does a really good job of mixing the two, the elevated horror and the campy horror, and combined it together, because there is certain things in here, like the elements that they're talking about and the subject matter, that is more elevated and more like nuance and everything. And then they have the appendage, the creature in here, the creature. This is the thing that we're talking. I don't know why I went like this, because it is this small in the beginning. Spoilers. And when the creature does come onto screen, it just becomes really a campy mess. And I don't mean mess as a bad thing. I think mess as a glorious mess, a beautiful mess, because I love when films just throw it at the wall, and this film just does it. They're just like, we're gonna do this, and you're gonna either accept it or you're not. And when you have horror films, or just any film in general, but particularly horror films, I feel like you gotta get straight into the plot, straight into the story, especially if it's a creature feature film. You don't necessarily got to show the creature right away. You know, there's a nice slow build up to the creature's reveal. That's what they, you know, do in most creature films, good ones anyways. But I think this film does a good job of pacing itself to when we eventually get to the creature reveal. There's a lot of like anticipation and dread leading up to that moment. And I really like that about this film, because lately I feel like the horror movies that I've been watching have been just a slow slog. You know, everybody's trying to be the next A24, so Just don't do that. And like I was talking about in the beginning, that this movie has elements or little hints here and there of like elevated horror, horror that makes you think, psychological stuff and everything. This film, they used a creature as a metaphor for anxiety and intrusive thoughts. I think we've all been there at one point where we have, kind of talking down to ourselves and just anxiety in general. I know you guys been through that. And this movie does a good job of making that feeling that we have gotten before and making it into something that you can physically see and feel, because heartbreak just feels good in a place like this. But I did think that was kind of unique and kind of out of nowhere, because like I said, I watched the trailer to this film and I knew I was getting a creature feature film, but I didn't know how they were going to introduce the creature, and how they do it in this film is campy as hell. And like I said, if you're not into that, don't watch this film. And I'm going to talk about later like what films that I recommend that you watch if you like this film. But I'm going to give you a little teaser, because this movie reminds me so much when I was watching it of Malignant, James Wan's Malignant. And that film, when that came out, man, boy, that was the most polarizing film of the year. I felt like everybody was either on one fence or the other. Either you really liked this film because you loved the campiness, or you really hated it because of the campiness. And this film, I feel like, won't be as divisive, because I don't think it's not as doesn't have a director as well known as James Wan attached to it, but it's similar in that aspect where the trailer doesn't really show you that it's going to be campy, but when you watch it, it goes campy. So I don't know how people are going to receive this film, but I do know right now, as of the recording of this video, it's not doing so well on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think maybe that's the reason, is because of the, campiness, and people are just like, no, I like my horror sophisticated. But for the rest of us, we can enjoy this campiness and support this, support this director and writer, because we need more of this. We need good creature feature films, because I'm tired of watching straight to VOD creature films. Okay, I have fun with them, but sometimes it gets overwhelming. I think that the story of our character is pretty relatable. Like I said before, we've all had intrusive thoughts and anxiety at one point or another. And while this story isn't like something new, quote unquote, the way that I present it is very unique in my opinion. We have an appendage as a representation of that kind of anxiety and that angst that we're going through. And I just like the story beats that we're going through. It's just really relatable. Like I said, we all went through stuff like that. And I think it's very enjoyable watch, because you're kind of like, man, I can relate to these characters, man. I mean, I don't have a manifestation creature of my anxiety, thank God, but I can relate. And as the movie goes on, you can kind of like figure out what certain things are going to happen, like certain plot points. You've seen this kind of film before, or at least this kind of like story beats before. So I guess that would be kind of a negative a little bit, or a con. I didn't really see it that way, because you have the appendage thing that is the new element in this familiar story that you are really invested in and wanting to see what the heck is this thing about? Where did it come from? What can it do? And I think that aspect of the film makes the stuff that's a little more repetitive tolerable. But I know for some people that might be a little bit of like, something of contention. They'll be like, I know I can just figure everything out. I know what's going to happen. And it's not really that unique. If I was going to pick out one big con that I did have with this film, it is that there's moments in this film, more than once, where I'm just thinking to myself, why didn't they just call the cops? They kind of give a brief explanation of why the characters aren't calling the cops, but I'm just gonna say it, I call bullshit on it. I call bullshit on that reasoning of why they don't want to call the cops, because especially when you have some physical representation of something that is physically there that other people can see other than our main character, I think, you have some justified reasons of just calling the cops, and maybe, just maybe, they might believe you. But kind of annoying when that happens, especially towards the end in one scene where I'm just like, really? Should just call the cops. But if they did call the cops, the movie would have been done in like 30 minutes. And if that happened, we wouldn't have the rest of the film. You know, it wouldn't be an hour and 30 minutes like it is now. So it'd just be 30 minutes. Just be another short. So Appendage, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you like this film? Do you hate this film? Is this something that interests you? Did I convince you to watch this film? Have you seen the short from the Bite-Size Halloween thing? Have you watched Bite-Size Halloween? I know. Gotta get into it apparently. I added it on my list. Will I watch it? Who knows? But if you did like this film, I'm going to give you some recommendations of films that you might like that are similar to this one. So the first one is Malignant, which we talked about, directed by James Wan. This one has a really weird twist, but I think you can kind of already guess where the twist is in this film. But trust me, if you haven't seen Malignant, watch a trailer. This is one where I recommend watch a trailer of it first, like watch the first trailer and then watch this movie and you'll be like, what the frick is going on? But in a good way. And the other film is an oldie but a goodie, and that is Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2. Now this is where my love for campy horror films started, and I guess some people wouldn't really call this campy, but I think you know, most of the Evil Dead movies are campy, especially Army of Darkness. I mean, that's like the campiest of them all. But if you're really into like that campy stuff and like late 70s kind of aesthetic, and if you are, you know, forgiving of the CGI or graphics back then and you can handle it, this one will be like definitely a good watch if you haven't watched it already. And that is it, guys. That is my review, and we're going to be talking about everything spooky from now on. I'm gonna have a couple videos like coming out for you guys. I was about to say streaming out. I'm not a streaming service, but I'm really excited to talk about scary stuff with you guys. It's one of my favorite things to do. I kind of turned into a horror channel as of late because I've been reviewing nothing but VOD horror films. I didn't plan this, but that's what is going on. So if you like this kind of stuff, let me know in the comments down below. Say, hey, I like this stuff, and just, you know, give me a like and I'll know that you did. But as always, guys, don't forget to check out my socials to stay up to date with my channel. Check out my Letterboxd so you can see ratings that I've given all the films that I talk about on here. Yes, I give ratings over there. I don't give ratings here because I don't really like ratings, but over there you can give ratings and people like that kind of stuff. So if you want to see what I gave Appendage, go over there. But as always, guys, keep watching movies.